Welcome to the Lifestyles Unlimited Real Estate Investor Radio Show, a real estate investment program. Listen and learn how to use real estate to build wealth and passive income streams for you and your family. We bring you experts every day to discuss and answer your questions on everything from single-family homes all the way up to 600-plus unit apartment complexes. And now, the Lifestyles Unlimited Real Estate Investor Radio Show.
Welcome to the show. My name is Al Gordon, and as always, we're working on your financial freedom. But before we can actually work on your financial freedom, we need to take a look at your current situation. We really do. We need to have an understanding. Well, we don't per se, but I think you need to have a really solid understanding of your current situation. And I'm not just talking about the financial health of your bank accounts or the financial health of your retirement plans or the financial health of, I don't know, something else that you are putting money into expecting some type of return from. That's just one component of it. See, there's another component that controls a big portion of your life. And I'm not talking about the time you spend with your family. Because when you really break down the amount of hours that you have per week and you compare it to where you spend those hours, the time that you spend with your family is most likely in a bed sleeping, not doing the fun things that you might do in bed, but sleeping. And then you wake up, you might see your kids, you might not. And then you go off to that place that's consuming the bulk of your time. And I'm not saying that working for a living is a bad thing. I'm not saying that. What I am saying is that the workplace can be very challenging. It can be very demanding. It can have a huge control over your life. And what I think makes the workplace even more exasperating is if you work in a place that has a culture that's toxic. Yeah, toxic. You've heard that before. You've heard about toxic workplaces. Do you even know how to identify one? Well, I do. I've seen them. I have seen toxic work environments in the military. Now, I didn't command any of those units. But when I took command of some of those units had toxic work environments. And in order for me to make those units effective, the first thing that I had to do was I had to zone in on why is it toxic? What is causing all of this? What is creating this problem? Because here's the problem you have as a leader. Here's the problem you have as a manager. Here's the problem that you have when your culture is not working as efficiently or as effectively as it should be. I mean, if you've got an infantry company and that infantry company needs to be able to go and do its mission downrange, if there is a problem with the organizational structure, it doesn't matter how tough those guys are, how individually trained they are, the culture is going to degrade the readiness and the effectiveness of that unit. And as a result of that, you may have to pull that unit offline, so to speak, and send a different unit downrange. Now, I know when you heard infantry company, you were thinking, oh, these those guys that sell coffee? No, that's Black Rifle Coffee. That, by the way, shameless plug. I've been to their coffee shop because there's one literally 15 minutes from my house, and it's good coffee. I mean, I'll give them the shameless plug. But having said that, I think Black Rifle Coffee is an example of a culture that is doing really well. I don't see any toxicity in that particular company. Now, I don't walk around behind the scenes. I don't do any of that stuff. But when I walk into the coffee shop, there is a sense of morale. There's a sense of camaraderie. There's a sense of wanting to serve me, the customer. And it's it's all clicking on all cylinders. So I think everything is fine there. But what about your workplace? Because really, at the end of the day, that's what we need to be concerned about. How's the communication where you work? Are there cliques? Are there little groups of people that seem to just kind of talk about certain things that nobody else knows about? Do you have gossipy behavior within the workplace? I will tell you, gossip has no place anywhere. It is problematic. And toxic work environments tend to have a lot of gossip. Oh, did you know the boss was sleeping with the secretary over there in the other department? Yeah, whether it's true or not, it plants a seed, and that's the problem with gossip. Maybe you're just experiencing bad leadership. Maybe your leaders above you are not giving you the guidance that you need, which could be dialed right into that communication problem that you're having an issue with. Maybe some of your coworkers, maybe they seem to just be unmotivated. It's kind of like they're showing up, they're hitting the time clock, and they just do the minimum effort. And they're just trying to get to 5 o'clock so they can hit the time clock again and disappear. That creates problems. Maybe there's no upward mobility in your organization. Or maybe, worse, there's a lot of rapid turnover. It seems like you hire somebody, you just almost get them trained, and they disappear. They go away. Where did they go? Did they go away because management said you need to go away, or did they go away because they couldn't hack it? I don't know. Well, if it was either of those cases, to be honest with you, I think management has a problem because they're hiring the wrong people. That's just my opinion. Maybe one of your problems is just no work-life balance. It's the pressures of the job just keep wearing on you. They keep taking more and more of your free time. Remember that free time that you have with your family, and most of that is spent sleeping in bed? Yeah, maybe you're battling burnout. Maybe you just feel like your workplace has little or no upward mobility. And maybe you've got a gut feeling right now. Maybe you've got a gut feeling that it's time to change this nonsense. When we come back from the break, I'm going to give you some suggestions. Stick around.
Welcome back to the Lifestyles Unlimited Real Estate Investor Radio Show. Now, let's get back to your map to financial freedom.
Welcome back to the show. All right, so we've been talking about toxic work environments, and you might actually be in one. You may not even know it, but you may actually be in one. Or you might know that you're in one because you're comparing your work environment to other work environments that you've been involved with. And this particular work environment doesn't seem like it's clicking on all cylinders. It just doesn't seem right. So what do? How do you fix it? Well, I will tell you this. Every solution starts with identifying the problem. And what you need to do is identify what is creating the problem. And I don't care if you're the CEO of the company. I don't care if you're the last person on the assembly line of the company. Toxic work environments will have a negative impact on you and that organization. And it will erode all the good work that you're trying to accomplish. If you're surrounded by toxicity, it will creep into your lane. It will get into your lane because there is no effective barrier. You can't go get a shot for it. And it is oppressive. Yeah, it's oppressive. So let me just hit you with the one thing that I think creates the biggest toxic work environment of them all. Now, I hit you with a bunch of them last segment, but I'm going to be real clear. Communication. Yeah, the one I led off with, communication. Communication in life will make or break you. Communication on the battlefield will keep you alive or not. Communication go ahead, pick your favorite place. Maybe work, maybe school, whatever, marriage, I don't know. Communication in blank will make or break you. Yeah. I think communication is huge. I mean, think about it. Have you ever gone to a foreign country and the primary language spoken in that country is not English or Spanish? I've been to countries like that, and it is very difficult to communicate with other people. As a matter of fact, when I was in the military and they sent me to these places, they would provide me a translation team, usually not one, but two people, to make sure that the communication between the people that I'm working with and myself is accurate. And here's the interesting thing about translators. A particular word in another language may have a different meaning or context than it does in our language. It may. So it may not translate across as effectively as it should. I mean, here's a classic example. Back in a long time ago, let's just put it that way. Chevy, the automaker, Chevrolet, you've heard of Chevrolet. Okay, they used to make a pretty cool car. I mean, this was like the car that most kids in high school, back when I was in high school, they wanted to get one of these because, you could put big tires on the back, and it actually had a pretty decent engine in it, and it was pretty fast. It looked cool, and if you had that car, you were awesome. You were awesome. I mean, you were communicating your awesomeness. That's what you were doing. You know what they called that Chevy? The Nova. The Chevy Nova. And then Chevrolet decided to export that car to Mexico. I mean, the Mexican people were looking at that car and going, that's pretty cool too. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Of course, they were saying it in Spanish. I don't speak Spanish, so I can't do that for you. But when they sent that car down there, they didn't change the name. And the problem that Chevy had was a communication failure. Now, it really didn't create a toxic work environment, but what I'm trying to do is just explain to you how communication can totally mess you up from left field and you don't even see it coming. So all you Spanish speakers out there, what does Nova mean? Yeah, translated into English, it means no-go. No-go. So who in their right mind would buy a Chevrolet with the brand model being no-go? What information does that communicate? It sends the wrong message, right? Yeah, it's incorrect messaging. And trust me, Chevy didn't just, decide, hey, look at these cars over on the shelf over here. Let's put them on a truck and send them down to Mexico and sell them. No, there was a major campaign to introduce those vehicles into Mexico. They were building cars. They were sending cars there. And when the advertising campaign hit, come buy your Chevy Nova, people went, yeah, it's a cool car. It looks pretty nice, but, I kind of need a car that actually functions. So poor communication in the workplace is a recipe for disaster. I could spend the entire show just talking about communication. That's how passionate I am about it. That's how much I know about effectively communicating. Communications is massive umbrella. It really is. And when you think about it, as a manager in an organization or as an employee in an organization, those elements, those people have to rely on verbal communication, written communication, preferences on how to communicate with each other. Do you send me texts? Do we do emails? Do I show up for meetings? How are we going to do this? Yeah. So you have all these variables as to how the communication message can actually flow. And of course, people will put their little spin on it. Hey, don't send me text messages because I won't read them. And you're the guy going, man, that's how I communicate. How do I get around this? Or the office has a centralized policy. Everyone will use email. Okay, everybody uses email. But now you've hired somebody that's 20-something, and they can't even spell email because they were brought up in a completely different communication lifestyle than you or I were brought up in. I mean, I hate to break it to you, but when I was in junior high school, my parents told me that in 8th grade, I needed to take a typing class. And it wasn't because they knew computers were coming a couple of years later. No, it was because that was the way we communicated back then. We actually typed letters on a typewriter. And believe it or not, I learned on a manual typewriter. It was a little bit more difficult than the IBM Selectric 2. You guys remember those, right? They were the bomb when they came out. But we communicated in the written form using typewriters. There was no electronic communication back then. So can you see how communication can become a problem? I'll tell you what, we're going to go to break. And when we come back, I'm going to talk to you about some of the challenges that communication can create within the organization. And you may be experiencing these things. Stick around.
Warning, listening to the Lifestyles Unlimited Real Estate Investor Radio Show will change your life. We will teach you how to create wealth and passive income so you can be financially free. And now, back to your host.
Welcome back to the show. You know, I was going to get into some of these other toxic lanes, but I'll be honest with you. I think communication is the biggest challenge, because if you can't get communication right, you're going to have a problem. And here's the other thing I want to bring up to you. If you're working in what you consider to be a toxic work environment and you're enduring it, why are you doing that? Why are you doing that? What's the point? Is it because you're trading time for money and you've gone out and you've made some major purchases, you've signed some big contracts, so to speak? You know, maybe you bought a house, and along with that house, well, there's a mortgage payment, right? And then you have the taxes and insurance that you have to pay on that house. And then you probably drive a really nice car. I'm thinking you drive a really nice car. And I'm thinking you didn't pay cash for that. I'm thinking you took out a loan for it. I mean, the interest rates are so ridiculously small right now. Why not, right? So you're making a payment on that. Oh, wait a minute. Your spouse, she needs a really nice car too, right? Because, you know, that's how you roll. So now you've got another note on another car. Oh, those cars, they need to be serviced periodically, so there's an expense for that. Oh, and then there's gasoline consumption. Yeah, those cars, they don't run for free. Even if they are electric vehicles, they don't run for free. Oh, and then there's those kids. Holy smokes, those kids. You know, they have this constant need to want to eat. Yeah, so you got to buy them food, right? And then, oh, you know, you just bought them clothes 3 months ago, and the little boogers grew. They grew up, and they grew out of what you just bought them. Now you got to go buy them some more. Yeah. And, oh, well, you know, they got to have the latest technology like mom and dad does, because you all went out and bought that nice Apple or LG or Samsung phone, right? Yeah, you know, the one that everybody wants, the one that does like 9 bazillion things that you will never probably ever access. But you had to have those phones, and your kids got to have those phones. Oh, you got more than one kid? Well, you need more than one phone. You can't let them share the phones, right? Yeah, and we get into this situation in our lives where we think we're doing all this great stuff for our family, and we're bleeding money. We're bleeding money. I mean, trust me. I know what it's like to be at the end of my money and still have some more of the month to go. And I'm guessing that maybe you've experienced that too. I'm not saying that's what you're doing right now, but chances are you've experienced that. Or you get those unexpected expenses that roll into your household. Yeah, now you got to pay for all that, right? So where am I going with all that? All right, here's where I'm going. First of all, if you're in a toxic work environment, we'll talk a little bit about that in a moment, you need to find a solution to that. Whether you become the solution or you cause the solution. And what is the solution to a toxic work environment? Well, I'll be honest with you. If you're the boss and you've got a toxic work environment below you, you might be part of the problem. You need to fix that. If you're the employee and you're seeing toxic work environment all around you, you can go to the boss and say, hey, I got some concerns, but if the boss is part of the problem and the boss isn't going to listen to you, where are you at? Well, you're between a rock and a hard place. Yeah. Now, maybe you start thinking, all right, I'm gonna dust off my resume. I can't do this anymore. I can maybe last another month in this company. It's driving me nuts. And I'm going to get that resume out there. I'm going to call all my friends and I'm going to tell them I am in the market for a new job. Totally fine. Totally fine. You can do that. But let me give you another option. Why don't you come hang out with us? Why don't you come hang out at Lifestyles Unlimited? Because what we're going to do for you is we're going to welcome you into our culture, which is not a toxic culture at all. See, our culture is a culture that is focused on helping other people. That is the root rule in our culture. Zig Ziglar said, if you want anything out of life, you can get it, but all you have to do is help other people achieve what they want out of life. It's true. And when you come to Lifestyles Unlimited, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to get you educated. We're going to teach you that there's a better way to do what you're doing and a more effective way to achieve the results you're trying to achieve. I don't know how old you are, but I will tell you that if you're working 30 or 40 or 50 years in a career to get to a place of retirement and you're not sure that that place of retirement is actually going to be able to do for you what you think it's going to do, you got a problem. If you haven't even thought about retirement because that is so far in the future, how am I today supposed to plan for something that's going to happen 20, 30, 40 years from now? Well, this is how you do it. You think about it. You talk to other people that have achieved retirement. You find out, how did it go for you? And then you find that there are really two types of retirees out there. The first type of retiree is the retiree that doesn't worry about money. They don't worry about money. They have created enough passive income streams that they've been able to walk away from the workforce. They don't have to go back into the workforce unless they desire to do so. And they're good. They own assets that produce income streams for them. Oh, and here's the big takeaway. Not all of them are in their 70s. No, a lot of these people I'm telling you about are in their 60s and 50s and 40s. And would you believe 30s? And believe it or not, we even have some 20-something-year-olds in our organization that have retired themselves. See, I'm telling you about a plan that will get you to a place that you're trying to get to right now, but it'll get you there in 5 years or less, depending on, where you start. And at the end of the day, you will start working on a business plan. That's your business plan. If you don't like how your business is going, all you have to do is modify it. All you have to do is change it. You can get as big as you want. You can stay as small as you want. It is totally customizable. I know Lifestyles Unlimited members that went out and bought 6 single-family houses. And with the income coming off those 6 single-family houses, they have retired themselves. They walked away from a 9-to-5 job. And that's what they needed to get to where they were trying to get to. And now they're focused on the lifestyle. Now they're buying another house or they're buying an apartment community because those assets are producing those income streams that they need so that they can conduct the business of their life. And they've regained complete control over their lives. They own their time. They make the decisions on when they work, when they don't work, who they talk to, who they don't talk to. And here's the beautiful thing. We have members in Lifestyles Unlimited that started with no real estate other than maybe the single-family home that they live in, that they consume. Yet, once they got started doing what Del Walmsley taught us to do, they currently own over $1 billion in assets in their portfolio. And I'm not talking about just one guy. There's multiple guys, technically multiple gals. It's a really cool thing. Could you live off of $1 billion worth of assets? Well, I think you could. Now, you don't have to do that, but isn't it nice to know that you can scale your business as little as you want or as much as you want? I think that's the beautiful thing of what I'm telling you about. But when we come back, I got to get back into this conversation about toxic work environments. Stick around.
Welcome back to the Lifestyles Unlimited Real Estate Investor Radio Show. It's time to turn up the volume and fine-tune your passive income plan so you can create the lifestyle you've always wanted.
Welcome back to the show. All right. I got to go back to the communication aspect of a toxic work environment because it's not just how you communicate, and it's not the delivery methods or whether it's electronic or it's analog. Yeah, analog communication is you and I talking. Without the radio, we're just actually talking to each other. There's no electronic medium working to support that. Yeah, it's like when you write a letter and put it in the mailbox. Snail mail, I guess it's kind of like analog communication, although they use mechanical means to move that stuff around. Okay, so I guess I'm overthinking it, aren't I? All right, I am. I'm overthinking it. But let's talk about some of those communication elements that go beyond how you communicate. What if your organization just is a vacuum of information? In other words, nobody seems to know the direction the organization is going in. Nobody seems to know what their goals and objectives are for their working unit. Nobody seems to understand what is going on in the company. Now, you might be thinking, wow, you're making that up, Al. There's no business that does that. It's a recipe for disaster, and that's my point. There are businesses that actually do that. There are governmental elements that actually do that. There are corporate elements that actually do that. Sometimes information becomes so close hold, nobody wants to share it. And the problem with not knowing the direction you're going in, you don't know what direction to go in, right? It creates toxicity. Because what do people tend to do when they're not told, this is the fact that we're working with in this company? Well, they kind of invent their own facts sometimes, don't they? They kind of take some of the information that is coming out of the head shed, so to speak, and they make assumptions about that information, and they create communication amongst themselves based on assumptions that were made because they're not getting the actual factual information coming down the pipeline. And that can be very damaging because all of a sudden now you have people that are focusing on something that isn't actually accurate. It's a huge waste of time. And huge wastes of time create wastes of money, which creates a negative impact on the bottom line for the organization that you're working for, which could result in your termination because now maybe there's not enough income coming in to support your job anymore. And because it's a toxic work environment, nobody knows what's going on, nobody talks about anything. All of a sudden, two goons show up at your desk and go, "Hey, Bob, pack your stuff. We're going to the front door." Yeah, that stuff happens in corporate America. I've never had it happen to me, but I know people that have had that happen to them. And I'll tell you what, that is, you want to talk about a transition in your mindset when those guys show up out of the blue? Not good. All right, here's something else that I think is just absolutely terrible. A constant lack of clarity about what is important in your workplace. Is everything a number one priority? I mean, does everything have to get done before 5 o'clock today? And depending on what you do, maybe the answer is yes, or the answer is no. But have you ever been in a situation where you're kind of working on stuff and you're kind of going, this doesn't look, I don't think we're going in the right direction with this, and you try and say something and nobody cares? It's frustrating, isn't it? Yeah, it's a reason for you to consider doing real estate like I've done, so we can get you retired in the next 5 years. You don't need to keep hitting your head against a brick wall or drywall or whatever's on the side of your office, or cloth, which is probably on the side of your cubicle. I don't know where you work. For all I know, you're in a maintenance bay. I have no idea what you do for a living. But I do know that poor communication is going to have a negative impact on how you feel about the job. Have you ever been in a situation where the boss tells you one thing and Joe, your coworker over there that you're supposed to be collaborating with, gets told something different, and you guys are at odds with each other because you don't know that you've been told that the instated objective is different? Doesn't that create problems? Why would a manager do that? Well, here's why. Not all managers are effective as managers. This is a true statement. Just because you give somebody a job with the title manager doesn't mean they have the skill sets necessary to effectively manage people. I'm just telling you the way it is. What about passive-aggressive communication? Passive-aggressive communication. Do you even know what that is? I mean, everybody says passive-aggressive behavior. Well, passive-aggressive behavior is essentially people trying to do certain things to get a result without kind of coming out and just telling you to your face. That's what I think passive-aggressive communication is. I mean, it could be things like procrastination, sarcasm, snide remarks, maybe making excuses, whatever. Okay? That's what I think passive-aggressive communication is. And I'd be honest with you, I don't think it has any place in the workforce. I think direct communication without any sugaring of the words, so to speak, so we make people feel good about themselves. We don't have to worry about that stuff. If you're hiring people to do a job and you give them clear, decisive information that they can work with, and you turn them loose and you expect good results, and you check on them from time to time to make sure that they're doing okay, and if they're not doing okay, you provide them resources to help them out. That's what good management is. That's what good leadership is. But that doesn't happen in America every day. No, it doesn't happen at all. Did you know that communication is a two-way street? It is. So I'm right now communicating to you. I am talking into this microphone. The words are being processed through this little box that's going through the internet, and it's coming out in your ears wherever you are. So here's the other piece of communication that is very important. Listening skills. You can communicate as clearly and as effectively as possible. You can repeat stuff 3 or 4 or 5 times. But if the people you're listening to are not properly receiving the information, well, you got a problem. Now, here's an example. I had at a property, we had a ceiling fan go bad. So I asked the resident, hey, did you check the bulbs? She said, yeah, I changed the bulbs out. It's not working. And I said, okay. So I said, I'll send my handyman over there. So I asked my handyman to just kind of get it on a schedule, right? So he went over to the property, and I had mentioned to him that there was also a little cosmetic repair that the resident wanted to do, and I'm okay with it because I really, she's just a great person, and she pays her rent, she loves the house, and it's a great relationship. So when she asked for a little bit of a cosmetic repair, I was like, I'll do that for you. So handyman went over and called me from the house, and he goes, hey man, I'm here, the ceiling fan shot. I'll get you another one. I'll get it put in for you. The resident was asking me about this other fix. Do you want me to do it? And I was like, yeah, I told you. There's 2 things to do there. Well, that was an example of ineffective listening because I had told him multiple times. I told him verbally, I'd put it in a text, and I actually put it in an email. But I understand my handyman is busy also, and it just kind of slipped his mind. So the beautiful thing was, even though he had some weak listening skills, he also understood that he needed to communicate with me before he did any additional work on the property, just to make sure he wasn't being, gamed by the resident. Okay? Because trust me, my handyman doesn't know who these people are. No, he's just there to do a job. So communication, it's a beautiful thing. Now, I'm not going to get into all these things on toxic work environment because I'll be honest with you, I think I just kind of hit them all at the beginning of the show, and I don't need to beat them into the ground. You know what a toxic work environment is. You may or may not be in one right now. And if you're not, that's awesome, dude. But what happens if the next job you take becomes that toxic work environment? I think you're always running a chance that a toxic work environment could show up in your neighborhood, in your workplace, at any particular time. I think the best solution is for you to just change what you're doing. Come to our side of the fence. Let us show you how to get yourself retired in the next 5 years so that you don't have to worry about toxic work environments. Go to lifestylesunlimitedworkshop.com. When you get there, get signed up, and let's get you going.
The Lifestyles Unlimited Real Estate Investor Radio Show is for entertainment purposes only. Please consult a professional regarding your personal investment needs. Nothing presented on the Lifestyles Unlimited Real Estate Investor Radio Show constitutes an endorsement, recommendation, offer, or solicitation to buy or sell any product or security.